Tropico 5, the latest installment to the Tropico series, tries to improve upon a proven series. Tropico 5 follows in the footsteps of its predecessors while still innovating. While much more content is added, Tropico 5 still feels like a Tropico game. The core gameplay is very similar to previous titles. Eras are one of the new features. As you play, it progresses through history, reminiscent to Tropico 4's Modern Times expansion, but much more in depth. The timeline progresses, starting with the colonial era, then the World Wars, followed by the Cold War, and then eventually modern day. The timeline progresses based off the amount of research completed. Research is based off how many science buildings you currently have producing research points, or RP. Each era is advanced by a specific mission. For example, proclaiming independence progresses from colonial to world wars. While research is interesting and adds a bit of depth to the timeline system from Modern Times does it better. The research system just feels tacked on just for the sake of having it. Edicts make a return from previous titles. However, many of the useless edicts were removed in favor of much more useful ones. Edicts also offer many different playstyles when compared to previous titles, since in Tropico 4, many of the edicts were not very useful. One of the other new features is the Tropican Constitution. The Constitution adds more styles of gameplay comparable to edicts, but in Tropico 5, the Constitution is an addition to edicts. Tropico 5 maintains the insane style with many puns and jokes that, while funny, eventually get redundant after multiple playthroughs, since they are all the same every time. The music is quite good, and some will say, better when compared to previous titles. While very similar to previous titles, the music is very well made and easy on the ears, even if you're not a fan. Another feature to make a return from the previous titles is upgrades. However, they are much more useful and are available much sooner in the timeline. Multiplayer is a new feature in Tropico 5, adding both competitive and cooperative modes. While Tropico 5 improves in many areas, it does take a few steps the wrong way. For example, the UI system is not nearly as thorough as previous titles. For example, in previous titles there was an option to highlight all shacks green, making it very easy to find where housing was needed since citizens do not like to live far away from their work. However, this feature was removed. Also, there is no option to view some data layers unless you try to place a building that uses that specific data layer. Later on, traffic becomes a major issue. Cars get backed up very quickly. This makes Teamsters very unreliable since they simply cannot get to the delivery no matter how many offices you have. Parking lots replace garages, however they encourage more citizens to drive instead of walk, making more traffic. Once you advance to the Modern Times era, there's an edict available to reduce the amount of people using cars. This, in addition to parking lots, feels very counterintuitive as they cancel each other out. Supermarkets and groceries are where citizens get food, but unlike previous titles, they have a limit on how many people they can serve. At high amounts of citizens, several supermarkets are needed side by side in order to keep up with demand, with no option to upgrade in order to increase capacity. Modern apartments, the best housing available, are almost pointless. With good budget and upgrades, regular apartments offer the same housing quality for much less cost, thus making modern apartments hardly worth using. Yes, they hold more people, but they cost about twice as much to run, while only offering a few more rooms. A trade system is added to Tropico 5, replacing the import system from Tropico 4. However, you cannot prevent citizens from selling back imports or selling something you wish to keep to use. For example, I imported iron to create steel, but before the steel mill received the iron, it was resold at the dock for much less than I had paid. Also added to the trade system are export contracts. Export contracts pay more for a specific item, but it's only a marginal amount, leaving them almost not worth using. Mines also deplete very quickly in Tropico 5, forcing you to import the material, but at least importing is possible. Improving upon the formula, Tropico 5's positives much outweigh its negatives, with large amounts of new content ranging from eras, multiplayer, constitution, research, just to name a few. Tropico 5 also comes at a very competitive price, asking for only $40 when compared to every AAA title nowadays asking for $60. Tropico 5 offers a fantastic value. If you like Tropico 3 and 4, you'll love Tropico 5. I know I did.